In a world filled with sharks, bears, and killer bees, one man is brave enough to stay indoors to bring you the latest in gaming, movie, and pop culture news. That man is Tom Awesome, and this is the Outside is Overrated podcast.
Hello and welcome to Outside is Overrated Game Club. Today we're discussing Neon White by Angel Matrix. I'm your host, Tom Sedlacek, and joining me for the discussion today are the Hobbybox Joe Burns.
Heyo!
And Patreon supporter Mike Mathwig.
Good evening.
Hopefully John Munch will also be joining us. He was supposed to be on the mic. We'll see if he makes it in at some point or not. But in this monthly segment, we play a game with our OiO community and invite our Patreon supporters to join us for the discussion. If you want to join in, support Outside is Overrated on Patreon at patreon.com/OIO. That's patreon.com/OIO. You can help for as little as $2 a month. Oh my goodness, I almost strangled myself with my earbuds. This is going to be a good show, guys. So we'll start by setting some expectations here for what we're going to cover with Neon White. We're going to talk about what this game is. We're going to talk about tips and tricks for not smashing your controller when submitting yourself to this experience. And we're going to talk about the story of Neon White. We'll start with the core gameplay loop. Basically, to distill this down into something easily comprehensible, you sprint through levels, leaping from platform to platform, killing demons, and discarding weapons for traversal moves. At the end of each level, you get a medal for how quickly in quotes, you beat it. And after defeating a collection of levels, you complete a mission and move the story forward. Mike, did you enjoy the parkour-inspired gameplay?
Sometimes. When it was good, it was a lot of fun. And when you get going and you're bouncing around and you're finding, shortcuts, way to cut time. But levels where I found it annoying, it was real annoying.
And you are the one out of the three of us who actually completed this game, played it all the way through. What, were the highs enough to pull you through the more frustrating bits of this game? Or, why did you see this through to the end?
Well, the highs are really good when this game's working. When you're doing things and you're kind of getting in the flow, it is a lot of fun. It's just the parts that were bad, to me, were really bad. But the good was enough for me to just want to see what was coming next. But, it was close. We'll get into it, but there was one spot that nearly broke me.
Burnsy, did any spots break you on this experience?
So if you're looking at the actual missions themselves, the main missions, I didn't really run into anything that felt that crippling. Granted, I only made it maybe a little over halfway through the game. And it wasn't from frustration that I stopped or anything along those lines. It was just not having enough time to put into the game to be able to get to the point where I could play through everything. So I think I made it through the 6 missions, like the overall weeks or whatever, however you want to label it. So probably I got down to, I think I was at Neon rank 48 or something by the time I was done. It's something like that. So, but I thought the action gameplay was pretty fun. Really the speed run nature of the missions were great. And especially I think the thing that they did really well with it that made it at least not super annoying when you'd screw up over and over and over again was that you were able to just restart and kind of jump right back into the mission pretty quickly. When you know that, I missed this, or I screwed this up, or I got to the end and I missed a demon somewhere and didn't kill them. It was really just hit the, I don't even know what they call the button on the Xbox, but you hit that. It's like what select would be in the old school days, basically. You hit that, and then you just start moving again, basically. And so I thought that helped with just sort of keeping in the momentum. It's like, I almost got this. I just got to do this. So just flick that and go.
So Mike thought this game was pretty great. Burns thought it was great-ish. I thought it was kind of fun at best. There were moments when I got into this core gameplay loop of sprinting through levels, but I did not enjoy the race against the clock. It was too much for me, and there were just too many times where I just barely miss a platform. And it's like, oh, restart again, and then like I'm like Casey playing Civ, just reset, 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 and it's just like, ah, man, I found it more frustrating than fun. But Mike, having completed this game, what stood out about the overall experience? Like, what were the high highs? Was it just the speed running, or was there something else that kind of pulled you through it?
I mean, the speed running is a big deal. I mean, when you get into a good level where it's kind of fun to shave seconds off, and you're find new ways to use the powers to allow you to cut a corner or to find some shortcut that at first was totally not obvious, is a lot of fun. And as they get into it and they add different types of powers, I don't know if we want to call them guns or powers, but the way that they use them and they combine them is actually pretty clever in a lot of these levels. It's the sweet spot. It's a level you can do in 30 to 45 seconds, and then cut down the time from there. Where they get into trouble is when they have the levels that take 1 minute, minute and a half, 2 minutes. Then it starts to wear real thin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that a bit. And I guess I think I had a couple of levels that were a little bit longer, and I can get that because there's a certain amount of time where if you're trying to redo something over and over and over again, the longer that those levels get, it kind of almost feels exponential if you're doing them over and over again, because you're just like, oh crap, all right, well this is another like 2 minutes almost, and I'm gonna have to go through and do this again. For me, like what stood out was the gameplay loop and how basically as you continued to do better in a level, more unlocked with the level. So, you get a bronze, which is the lowest medal that you need to do to be able to move forward, basically. And if you get a bronze in the level, then it will... crap, I can't remember exactly what that... I think, does that unlock the... Go ahead, Tom.
It unlocks the gift.
Okay, so that unlocks the gift. And then if you unlock the silver, that unlocks the ghost mode. So you can basically see if you're going faster than your best attempt or not. Which is really helpful when it's like, oh, okay, I lost time here. What do I have to do to be faster through this area in order to improve my time? And then when you got the gold, it would give you a hint, which is basically, hey, this is the shortcut that you can use that's going to actually end up getting you to the platinum time, which is the best that you can do in the level for the most part. And I thought it was neat that they had the gifts in there that you could go after as well. And there are sometimes in missions where, excuse me, there's sometimes in some of the levels where I would basically just see something and it's like, okay, well, that's kind of weird that I can go on this little boat that's off in this side area and there's nothing over here, but it's just kind of neat that this is here. And so, I don't know, I think a lot of that, it just sort of everything fed into each other, right? And it just made it so that it was an enjoyable loop to kind of keep going back through. And for me, at least... I think the speedrun aspect of it, of being like, oh, okay, I know that there's like a couple of seconds that I can shave off of this if I just do this, so I'm going to do one more run to see if I can get that. And so I was able to get gold on all the levels that I did before moving on to the next one. I had to go back on one of them that I couldn't do it on, but so far on all of the ones that I've beaten, I've gotten a gold at least, and some of them I've gotten platinum.
The speedrunning is irritating for me because the ground is lava. Every time you miss a jump, miss a platform, your run is done, you have to start all the way over at the beginning. I don't know if it would have helped my brain to just be able to cross the finish line and be like, well, that run sucked, but at least I did it. But I got really frustrated with the constant restarts. And I know that I'm not meant for speedrunning. I don't have great twitch reflexes. I know that this isn't a particular game for me, but I'll turn to you guys for a second and just, did you like that speedrunning aspect, or would it have been easier for you as well if you could have just crossed the finish line before restarting?
I mean, I enjoyed the speedrun aspect of it quite a bit, as I was just talking about. So, I don't know. I thought that was fun. That helped to sort of push me forward. And then you get to look at the leaderboards at the end. And if you get gold, or is it if you get platinum that you unlock the actual global leaderboard for the level?
I think that's gold, isn't it?
I think it's gold, and it's like, I don't know, I'm never going to be anywhere close to the top on those. But seeing the other people that have been playing the game on the system, so seeing Kick Camel and seeing John Munch's number on there, sometimes things got a little wonky with that, but that actually helped me to sort of be like, oh, okay. Let's see if I can beat John's. I wasn't going to touch Joe's. I wasn't going to touch Kick Camel ever. I got close on a couple, but that was about it. I think I maybe beat him on one level when I got a platinum, but that's about it. But that was also an interesting little wrinkle to be able to sort of see how you're pacing with everybody else.
It was interesting for you. It wasn't interesting for me because my leaderboards never worked. It was a weird thing. Like, I went into my Xbox settings. They said my NAT ports were open. And, like, John sent the article about going into my router. And, like, I just didn't. And I'm like, that's too much work.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to do that. So it was a bummer that I couldn't see the rest of the OiO community's attempts. Like, maybe that would have engaged me a little bit more. I suspect it wouldn't because it would have just frustrated me that, like, I wasn't competitive. Yeah, Mike, what was like playing on PlayStation for you?
Well, obviously, I couldn't see your guys' times. Frankly, that's probably for the best because I would have been sad and depressed when I compared my terrible times to most everyone else's, I'm sure. So I enjoy improving my own time. This kind of game, I only compete against myself because I'm not good enough to compete against other people. So as long as I'm improving my time, I feel like I'm doing something positive.
Sure. And
Yeah, for me, the times were basically a novelty. Like I said, my goal was just to get gold on each level, and if I got gold on each level, I was happy with that. Maybe like after I would beat the game, I would maybe try to go back and see if I could get platinum on everything, or see if I could try to take Kick Campbell's score down a little bit. But that would only be after I actually get through all of the actual mainline part of the game.
your commitment to gold medals was admirable, my friend. For me, like, if I played a level and I liked it, I'm like, sure, I'll chase the gold or the platinum, because you do need to lower your neon rank enough to move the story forward. But there were times when I'm just like, I'm done with that mission. I am done with it forever because I know I'm not coming back to this game. But for me, the thing that stood out the most was the cool anime vibe of this game. And we'll talk about the story a little bit later, but like this game just oozes style, and the gift system is awesome. Burns, you mentioned it, but once you get bronze in a level, you can find a gift hidden in that level. And like that was, for me, my favorite part of the game was looking for those gifts and like saying, I don't care about the time. I'm going to look at all the ledges. I'm going to look at the weapons that we have and where can I get. And that was the aspect that I liked most of this game.
Now, did you like then taking those gifts and giving them to the various people and seeing what transpired after that? Or did you not really care for a lot of that extra side stuff?
To be honest, I only found like 5 or 6 gifts. Most of them were red, so I got to Red's side mission. I'm like, oh, I do not have the skills to beat this, and I probably never will. And so like, okay, this is the end of my side stuff with Red, so cool.
Those side missions actually were really good practice, though. If you could get through them, you got way better at using whatever particular skill was in that side mission than you were before. And that's what they were there for. And so if you did take advantage of them and get a few, it really helped in the actual rest of the game, because it really taught you better how far you could jump and how you could string together usages abilities in ways that you probably weren't going to get just doing the normal level.
And to clarify, I thought that was really cool. Like, I like the way that they had the gifts and the way that it fed the side missions. But like, once I realized that it, I like how it fed the relationships. But once I realized that there are side missions that I didn't have the skills to hack, it's like, oh, well, okay, cool, just not for me. Which pretty much sums up my experience with Neon White.
So it's interesting. So basically, when you would take and I got all of the missions that I've beaten, I've gotten the gifts on also. And so, I basically went through and, once I kind of actually decided to go back through the gifts, I was like, it was after I finished like 2 full tiers of levels, basically, or maybe it was 3 full tiers of levels. So I went back and grabbed all the gifts for all of them. And then I just started basically, before I would leave a level, after I would get the gold, I would go back and try to get the gift for it. So when you give a gift to one of the characters, and it's the other neons that are the characters, as well as a couple of the angels that are cat people. I don't know if there's any better way to explain it than that. But yeah, and so from them you will get either dialogue. So from the cat people, you only really get dialogue, or you'll get trinkets that go up into your room. And then from the other neons, you will get dialogue, and that'll be interspersed with side quests that you have to do, which Tom explained. And each one of the colored neons, the side quests kind of have a different sort of bent to them. And so I believe it's reds tends to be a lot more about chaining a lot of your gun abilities together. Purple or purple. No, violet.
Violet.
There we go. Violets are all about like lots of spikes and basically just trying to avoid the spikes. And then yellows, which were interesting, and there weren't enough of those ones, were all about actually just using the guns. You couldn't use the abilities on them, which I thought was a fun way to do because a lot of the times, mostly when you're going through the normal missions too, you're just doing that and that's it. But then the third thing that you unlock a little less regularly then are memories, and it's basically White regaining his memory with that given character from when he was alive. And so that's the other piece of it that's intriguing and frustrating because it feels like a lot of that information then is gated behind probably the most difficult and frustrating parts of the game because some of those side quests you get a little bit later on are insane. Like how perfect you have to chain every single thing together in order to finish that mission. And those were times when I was like swearing and screaming and yelling at the TV because of just how much just mental damage that was inflicting upon me to try to get through. Some of those side missions could be super lengthy too. And so, yeah, that was maybe one detriment to it that I know where they're going with it, but it's just kind of a little rough and frustrating.
So would you say that the gift mechanic is more or less fun than the main like gameplay loop?
I think it's interesting. The problem is just I wish there was an easier way to accomplish the side quests. So it feels like the side quests, in order to just complete them, is on like par with getting a gold in a mission. But there's no like tier bronze, silver, gold with the side missions. You either finish it or you don't, basically. The times don't, as far as I know, as far as I got in the side missions, the times don't matter. But it's just precision movement. Like you have to do everything exactly correctly in order to be able to chain it all together to complete it. And so I think that's the bummer about it, is just that you're gating some of this content that I don't know if it comes out in some of the main story missions also, but it's just really interesting stuff to get this actual understanding of what White had forgotten, basically, and how that plays into the story of this group of people.
So, Burns, are you glad that you played this thing, or would you have rather just watched it on YouTube? Because I am 1,000% on Team YouTube, dude.
No, I mean, I think you were trying to paint me a little bit more closer to you than I actually am.
We're the same,
experience
dude.
Of this game. Yeah, because I enjoyed this game. I just did not have enough time to really put into it to see it all the way through to the end the way that I wanted to play it, which if I probably didn't go back through all the missions to get all the gifts, I probably would have finished all the way through it, but that, I don't know, that's not the way my mind works when I approach games like this, unfortunately. And so, I got the complete sort of package of the half of the game that I played. And I would like to finish it at some point if I have, wherever I find the time. I mean, I still want to finish Ayuden, and I haven't gotten back to that yet. Hopefully this fall there's maybe a little bit more free time for some of that stuff. But yeah, this last month is just, I've been away and I've just been busy with lots of other things, and so it just I just didn't have the time that I really wanted to put in to try to see this game all the way to the end. But I really enjoyed it, and I think it's been a fun and worthwhile experience most of the time.
So, game of the generation for Burns. Got it. Mike, did you enjoy the gift system? Did you have anything to add on to what Burns was saying, or was this something that you skipped over in your playthrough?
I got some. I didn't get all the gifts, but it was a nice change of pace when I get frustrated with the speed running. That instead just go on the level, look around until you figure out where the gift was, and figure out how to get to it. And some of those were nasty, though. I mean, really, I thought fairly viciously designed as far as making it difficult to get to them. So that's why I didn't get all of them. But it wasn't nice to have another thing that you could do And I kind of enjoyed just being able to relax and just fiddle around on the level, trying to get the presents when I would get real annoyed with my inability to get, gold medal or something.
Yeah, that is so similar to how I felt. Like, trying to find the gifts was my favorite part of this game. And then I ran to the wall of the first side mission. It's like, oh, all right, well, I could find all the red gifts in the world, and I'll just never know what the rest of this tree is. So in Neon White, you play as a Neon, someone from hell who is offered a chance at redemption by slaying demons in and around heaven. You play as Spike Spiegel, Neon White, who has amnesia, even though all of his friends seem to remember everything. It's a Hunger Games type setup where there can only be one winner. Mike, did you enjoy the story in Neon White?
It was pleasingly dumb, as I would describe it. I mean, I don't remember who said it in the Discord, but someone said it had serious 2000s Adult Swim anime vibes, and it really did. Mm-hmm. And if you're into that kind of thing, it was a lot of fun. I mean, it's not as clever as it thinks it is, and frankly, it is pretty silly and stupid in some ways. But it does it in an entertaining and fun way. So yeah, I was all for it.
Yeah, I'll weigh in quick, Burns, and then I'll kick it over to you. I thought it was all right what I experienced. I liked it. I liked the art style. I thought, all the interactions were interesting. I liked the interplay between, white and yellow and white and violet to, try to figure out what was going on. And, I was invested enough in the story that, I would enjoy watching this as an anime. Burns, what was your take on the story?
I thought the story was interesting enough to kind of hook someone that likes to pay attention to story in games and be curious about, trying to answer a lot of the questions that come up, what's the history of all these people, what actually is going to happen if you win, right? Is there actually a quote-unquote winner? Because it doesn't seem like it's that great. I don't know. I guess I don't know what hell's like for them. Maybe that's something that does come up in the game. But for me, it definitely reminded me a bit, especially as you dug a little bit deeper and got some of the memories of Reservoir Dogs, because they're all colored names, and they had this heist that just went way bad, apparently, and they kind of had a bad feeling about it going in, even too. As far as I've realized, and so that was intriguing to me too, as someone who is a Reservoir Dogs enjoyer. So.
Burns, do you mind if I interrupt you to ask a question to Mike?
Go for it.
Mike, without spoiling the story, do they explain why all these people that were on a heist that went south are in this competition together with, one neon green who's, not connected to them? Does that come to some sort of satisfying conclusion?
Yes, Neon Green is very much connected to all of the rest of the colored neons in the game. It's something you have to get fairly far into the story before it's made clear, but yeah, it's all connected pretty clearly when you're done.
Mike, are you telling me that I have to play this entire freaking game? Because, I don't know if I can do it, man. I am interested enough in the story that I'm willing to endure more frustration. And I know
I'm sure Wikipedia has your answers if you really want.
Or YouTube.
Yeah, I'll probably just have to YouTube it because, I don't know if my Twitch reflexes can pull me any further. Burns, did you have more thoughts on the story, or did I let you wrap up before I interrupted?
No, I mean, that's most of it. And yeah, I got to the point where it became pertinent and you started to realize that, yes, green actually did play a pretty pivotal role in a lot of this. And so, I don't know, that's interesting. I'm intrigued to find out a little bit more about that. One of the things I also really liked, and I know obviously the actor who plays Neon White, Steve Bloom, I'm not sure exactly, Blum, but so, he's really well known for being Spike Spiegel's VA, but he's done a lot of different anime. And one of the things that I really liked, mostly just because I've actually seen that anime, is there's a couple of different times where he's referred to or he's talking about people referring to him as a great teacher. And I love that because he was the voice of Ikichi Onizuka in the anime Great Teacher Onizuka, which is also one of my sort of dark horse favorite anime. And so I love that they actually made that. 'Cause I don't know that I ever caught a Spike reference, which surprised me. But when they said the Great Teacher stuff, but they said the Great Teacher stuff, I was like, okay, that's great. They're speaking to me then. So that got a couple bonus points for me in that sense. The side characters are the compatriots, the companions. I don't know, I hated Violet like with a burning fiery passion. I'll use Tom's words. I really did not like Violet, and it's like the more that you do with Violet, the more it just reinforced that. Like the more dialogue I had with her from the side gifts, like, okay, yeah, I don't like Violet. Her missions, it's like I hate Violet. It's just like every single thing about this gal, I just can't stand her. Maybe she gets redeemed at some point later on, but yeah. Red, I think, was interesting. I liked Yellow a lot. It's unfortunate, kind of, that Yellow's not as active a part of everything, after fairly early on. I'm intrigued by Green, but I don't know. I thought I thought the group around was interesting, but maybe there needed to be a little bit more meat on some of those relationships, and a little bit less of just like kind of disliking or distrusting all of them.
It's interesting hearing your take, because I also kind of liked Yellow, but I liked Violet a lot more than I liked Red. I didn't care for Red very much. Mike, where did you come in on the colors?
They were all kind of, what's working for? They fit their own stereotypes. They were there to kind of play off of white in very predictable ways.
Mm-hmm.
And they were fine for doing that. Honestly, the best side character, if you get far enough into it, I think, is Mikey, the angel cat. If you get into his stuff, because as you get in the late parts of the game, he explains a lot of the lore, I guess we'll call it. And honestly, it's kind of nuts what they did in their backstory for the whole point of this competition and what's happening in heaven and all that. And I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but they kind of went crazy silly on the whole backstory of this competition. And Mikey gives you that.
Interesting.
That is interesting. I don't know what I'm going to do with this game, but Mike, how well did the entire package come together? You beat it. There was enough there that you saw it through to the end. If you had to put a numeric score on this on the 0 to 10 scale, which I know Burns hates with a fiery passion, but if you had to put a score on this thing, what would you score it?
I think I would say 8. I think it's an 8, maybe a 7.75, but in that ballpark. I mean, I love the art style. I like the silliness of the story, and I like the mechanics of what they did. I think there were just some flaws where they maybe got a little too ambitious or maybe a little too aggressive in what they wanted you to do. But I think overall it's still a very positive package.
And I'll jump in, Joey, and then I'll let you wrap up. I agree that, this game isn't 8-ish. I totally agree with that rating. My skill at it is a 2-ish, which is where a lot of my issues come from, and I don't want to blame the game for that. I think this was a really good and really interesting game. It just, it's a terrible fit for what I like to do in gaming. It's a very unique experience. It's really well done. And the thing I struggled with most is just, there's too much you have to try to control in the chaos. You're flying through these levels, and there's demons, and you're switching weapons, and everything is mapped to the triggers and the bumper buttons, and there was just too much control that you need. If I could just let go and go freaking nuts and just blow through levels and still finish without having to reset 100,000 million billion times, I think that would have been a much more enjoyable experience for me.
Speaking of the controls, I definitely had to remap. I believe it was what was on left bumper, the jump button, to the X button on the Xbox controller. I needed that to not be on the same as discarding the item, because I can't do the 2-finger with the triggers. I can only do the 1. And so it was basically my fingers would be on the triggers, and then if I needed to switch things, I could go up to the RB, but I couldn't go back and forth with my left finger enough. So I had to remap at least the jump button onto one of the face buttons. Did anybody else remap controls at all and find that helped with any of the
I probably should have remapped the jump button, because jump as L1 always throws me, but I decided to force myself to stick with the intended control scheme. And frankly, I probably should have done what you did. It would have probably been easy to have jump on X where my brain wants it to be.
Yeah, I should probably remap too, because I didn't, and I just had issues. The first time I logged in, I played the first couple of missions. I'm like, oh yeah, this is kind of neat. And then I didn't play for a week, and I jumped back in. I'm like, I don't know how to jump, and I tried every face button. I'm like, nothing's doing anything. I don't know what to do. Am I just done in the first mission?
It was, well, and so it's definitely a little rough once you switch it, because some of that muscle memory will kind of will jump back in there a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. That helped me a lot. I felt like. So Tom, question for you then: would you rather put more time into this game, or would you rather put more time into something like either because they're both similar-ish games. They're very different games, but are similar gimmick, I guess, with it. Metal Hellsinger or Hi-Fi Rush. Like, which one of these do you think you would actually want to see through a little bit more, and why?
That's a great question, and like I knew you were going to go ahead Metal Hellsinger. I could just feel it. Let me rank those three games in the order that I would be interested in putting more time into the experiences. It's Neon White, and it's not close. Then Hi-Fi Rush, and then a very healthy gap, and then Metal Hellsinger down at the bottom. And like, if I had to, I could play more Metal Hellsinger. Like, it wasn't the worst experience. It's not the worst game that I've played. Like, it's not Human Fall Flat, thank God. But I did not enjoy that experience. So like, this is mostly a fun game. I just suck at it, and it's like, this is not an efficient use of my time. And so like, I kind of like it, but I don't like it enough to really deal with the fun to frustration ratio, which I thought was 1 to 1,000.
Yeah, and that's interesting. Like, I didn't find myself that frustrated, especially with the main missions, up until the point that I've gotten to in the game. There was a couple of times here or there where I would have to bash my head against a wall, or I'd keep missing some random demon in a level and have to figure out, okay, what am I doing wrong that I'm not like hitting this at some point with my skills, you know? So I did run into that.
It's interesting that you bring that up because you know how much I hate bugs and like game breaking bugs and like how I will not forgive a game that ruins the experience by being buggy. This game, there were a couple of times where like I was beating my head against the wall on a mission, like I just couldn't do it. I'm like, all right, I just got to stop. I'll try it again next time. And like, and then for whatever reason, it happened to me 2 or 3 times. Like I'd just be on the mission after that, like the note after that. It's like, all right, great. I don't know what medal it gave me. I don't care. Like I'm still moving forward, and I'm very happy.
The bugs can work in your favor, Tom. Right?
Yeah,
Sometimes.
And like Alien Isolation kept me from playing that game. I guess that worked in my favor too.
Yes.
Marvel Avengers kept me from playing that game. Less working in my favor. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about Neon White and this experience that we had over the last month?
Like for me, overall, I had a fun time with it. I really got into the loop, and like, you know, and it basically, as it got to the, you know, as I've been playing it recently, it was really just, you know, go through the mission first. All right, what do I have to do to get gold? Once I get gold, go get the gifts. Once I get done with the full mission, like the 10 levels or whatever that's in that mission, then go back to the hub, talk to everybody, give them the gifts, do all that stuff, and then continue moving forward. And so I did really get into that loop and found that enjoyable. The things that were a little bit of a detractor were some of those side missions that got to be just really frustrating, and the fact that it's like, well, I want to see this memory that's coming up, so I kind of have to do this. So it's feeling like I was beholden to do this side stuff, which is a little bit of it's just a little frustrating that they'll lock some actual like story content behind some of those things. And then the controls. The controls, I think, are really good for the most part, but there's still just a little bit of floatiness when you're in the air. And sometimes you get into the flow and you're feeling that the right way, and other times it just doesn't jive with you. And it feels like that because it's a little floaty, I'm like losing time, and it's like I really wish I could find a way out of this. And sometimes it's really just using your abilities to like, you know, toss a gun to shoot forward to keep your momentum moving, I guess. But yeah, that was one thing that I found with the controls, especially when you get into some of those side missions, the floatiness of the controls would really just sort of, it'd find the cracks in like, how effective are these controls? How well can you really control this in a perfect way? And, you know, maybe I just needed to put double or triple the time in to really feel the exactness of a lot of that stuff. I didn't want to mess around with the sensitivity because I was worried that the times where I do need to be nimble, that was going to detract that, or the times where you need to like do like a 180 turn to shoot something in a different direction, or to shoot forward with one of your abilities. So yeah, that was the one thing that was maybe a little bit of a detractor for me also. But otherwise, overall, I did enjoy the game a lot. I would put it in that 7.5 to 8-ish range, kind of like Mike was talking about before. So yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to it sometime, hopefully finishing it and seeing what the entire package looks like. But yeah, that was, for me, Neon White in a nutshell.
Yeah, I'm so sorry that I was going to wrap the show without giving you a chance to close your thoughts. That's why I don't go in the middle. That's why I always go last.
No, it's all good. It's all good. We got back there.
Mike, anything else you want to discuss about Neon White?
I just want to. I think the biggest mistake they made in making this game was their decision to have boss fights against green, because those are the worst thing in the game by a country mile.
I thought the first one,
end of chapter 5 and end of chapter 10, and then at the end of the game, you have 3 different boss fights against green where you have to chase him down, knock down his shield, stun him, and then shoot him for a bit. Then he gets moving again, and you have to repeat. 5 wasn't terrible. Chapter 10, I think I died 50, 60 times in a row, and that level, I said the sweet spot was like 30 seconds to a minute. My completion time for 10 was, I think, well over 5 minutes.
Oof.
And I failed like 50 times in a row getting there, so you can tell how much time that took. And it was just, that nearly ended it for me. I got through that by the skin of my teeth, and if I had failed a few more times, I probably would have thrown this thing out the window, metaphorically.
Well, you just made my decision for YouTube, so thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. And, I'm glad you brought up the boss fights, too. And, I did the first one, and I thought it was interesting, and it's like, oh, okay, well, that was all right. I hope there aren't a lot of these. And I'm disappointed to hear that there's 2 more boss fights against them and that they get incrementally more frustrating.
The last one wasn't as bad. For whatever reason, that middle one, I think they just got too ambitious or something. The third one is a little shorter and just a little more. Admittedly, though, on the last one, I did lose him completely, where I was, you have to chase him down. You're flying through the air, doing all these abilities. At one point, I kind of lost track of him visually, and then I didn't know where he'd went. I could hear him making noise somewhere on the level, but I couldn't see him from the way that the setup was. I literally didn't have any idea where to go. I just kind of stood there, and finally I just gave up and restarted, because I have no clue at that point where he'd gone or how to get to wherever he was, or even figure out where he was. And that, to me, is just, that's not a great experience.
Yeah, that's Neon White by Angel Matrix. Now, I mean, this was an interesting choice. I know that John wanted something leaderboardy, and he was the one who chose this game, and I'm thankful that he put it up, because I never would have played it on my own. It was an interesting experience. I know that several members of the community really enjoyed it, which I appreciate. But I'm ready to move on. And next for the next 2 months, we're going to be discussing Yakuza 0 by Sega. Mike,
Woo!
Yeah, Mike, you put this game
Woo!
up. I'll give you a chance to defend it in just a minute after I read this massive mound of marketing copy. The glitz, glamour, and unbridled decadence of the 80s are back in Yakuza 0. Fight like heck through Tokyo and Osaka with protagonist Kazama Kiryu and series regular Goro Majima. Play as Kazuma Kiro and friends, you're just laughing at me, and I'm trying so hard. Kazuma Kiryu, and discover how he finds himself in a world of trouble when a simple debt collection goes wrong and his mark winds up murdered. Then step into the silver-toed shoes of Goro Majima and explore his normal life as the proprietor of a cabaret club. Switch between 3 different fighting styles simultaneously and beat up all manners of goons, thugs, hoodlums, and lowlifes. And min-maxers. Take combat up a notch by using environmental objects such as bicycles, signposts, and car doors for bone-crunching combos and savage takedowns. Fighting is not the only way to kill time in 1988's Japan. From discos and hostess clubs to classic Sega arcades, there are tons of distractions to pursue in this richly detailed, neon-lit world. And finally, you can interact with the colorful denizens of the Red Light District. Help a budding S&M dominatrix learn her profession, or ensure a street performer can make it to the bathroom in time. There are over 100 incredible stories to discover. Mike, why are you excited for Yakuza 0 and my incredibly poor.
This is one of the
reading off
greatest
cuff.
games ever made. Plain and simple. There's no, beating around the bush here. This is a great game that I slept on this whole series for years and years and years. Never really took it seriously. Never played them until this game came out in 2018. I got into it because it was really raved about on some of the podcasts I listened to. And I played this in 2018. And after that, I went back and I've played every single game in the series that's been available, which is 9 plus 2 Judgment games plus their Fist of the North Star game made by the same company, all within the last 6 years. Because it's like you have this hole in your gaming experience you didn't know was there until you find a game that just clicks in, and you're like, "Holy crap, where has this been all my?" That was this game for me. I adore this game.
That's fascinating. Why did you bring it to the OiO community then? Like, you've already played it, you've already experienced it. So, like, why surface it for it? I'm grateful, but I'm just curious.
Because there's so much in this game that's so wonderfully insane. I'm going to vicariously relive discovery of it through you guys, I hope, because I suspect you're going to run into things in this game you would never have seen coming, and it's going to blow your mind, and I am going to love every reaction that I hear.
That's awesome. Well, Mike, we'll talk offline about a realistic breaking point for part 1.
Okay.
But I am super excited to jump into Yakuza 0. I hope you'll jump in and play with us. Please support Outside is Overrated at patreon.com/OIO. That's patreon.com/OIO. And until next month, stay inside, kids.